Okay, so first of all, let us look at this the structure of the mammalian heart. So for mammalian hearts in humans, roughly about 300 grams. Okay, it's about the size of a fish. So now you look at your fish, that is the size of your heart. Okay, so the heart is a very powerful pump, supply this oxygenated blood to all over our body and deoxygenated blood to the alveoli of the lung. Okay, when each round of the contractions. So if you zoom in into the heart, so the heart actually makes up of the muscle cell, a special muscle cells called cardiac muscle, which is myogenic. Okay, we always use this word myogenic. Myogenic basically means that they do not need to have our central nervous system to control the pumping. Are you clear? So we have the myogenic and neurogenic. Neurogenic basically means that we have the nerve impulses from our brain, okay, to tell them, okay, contract, relax, but no, because basically if you take out the heart and put it outside, they can contract by themselves. So that's why we call them as the myogenics. Okay, myogenics means that they can contract without nervous impulses, okay, or action potential from our central nervous system. Okay, so the cardiac muscle, they have this what we call their interconnecting cells. Sorry, they have these interconnecting cells. Their plasma membrane are very tightly joined together. Are you clear? Compared to other kind of the cells, because this close contact allows the wave of electrical excitation wave. Highlight this. It's not impulse, guys. It's not impulse. It's not the action potential. The wave that pass between the cells. The communication here is by electrical excitation wave. Okay, it's not the nerve impulse. Cannot use nerve impulse in the mammalian hearts because they are myogenic. Okay, so you look at the structure. Okay, you can structure their branch like this, but they're interconnected by this interconnected disc. So interconnected disc join two cells together. Can you see that? Can you see that? So make sure that they are connected well, because it's something like electricity, right? So this electrical excitation wave had to pass from one cell to another cell. So it means that when the electrical excitation wave reach the cells here, the cell will contract, pass to another cell, contract, pass to another cell, contract. So therefore, the cardiac muscle, they are myogenics. They do not need to have the neurons. Compared to our skeletal muscle is a neurogenic. Neurogenic means that we need to have the nerve impulses to ask our muscle cell to contract. But cardiac muscle cell, no need. Cardiac muscle cells, they are myogenic. So how they can be myogenic in this case? Basically, the one cell contract is going to pull the another cell realize it something like shock, and then they contract together. So based on this interconnected cell, these that join the cells together. Okay. So if you zoom into the mammalian hearts consist of 4 chambers. So 2 upper chambers known as atrium or atria. The lower chamber is known as ventricles. So for mammalian heart, we have a very, very what we call this well-organized structures to partitions to separate our ventricle, okay, because we do have the septum. Can you see that? This is something like septum. Divide these 2 chambers, okay, so that the chamber won't mix. Okay, so the only way to get from one side of the heart to another side is to leave the heart. So that's why it's a double circulations. Okay, you have to go out first and then enter back. There is no way for you to actually cross between the 2 atrium or 2 ventricle. Okay, so between the atrium and ventricle, we do have the valve. So generally, this valve is known as AV valve or atrioventricular valve. Okay, so if you look at this, now posterior is mean back, at the back. Okay, so anterior means that's from the front. So this is a view from where? The view from the top. Are you clear? The view from the top. So if I cut my heart, this is the heart. So we cut it this way and view it from the top. Then you can see that this is, or these are the valve. So this valve, collectively, we call it as the atrioventricular valve or AV valve. Okay, but in more specific, can you see that they have 3 cups here? 3 cups. This is 2 cups. Can you see that? So 3 cups here, so that's why we call it as a tricuspid valve, right? Tricuspid valve at the right side. Okay, at the right side, guys. Always remember, my right side when you see it is your left. Are you clear? My right side when you see it is your left. So therefore, this is the right side of the person that you see. So at the right side of your heart, so between the atrium and ventricle, separated by this tricuspid valve, because 3. Okay, 2 is called bicuspid, also the term as the mitral valve here, the mitral valve. So 2 cups only. Are you clear? Can now we do have another valve where at the aorta and also the pulmonary artery. Can you see that? Aorta and pulmonary artery. They do have the valve, but this valve is a semi-lunar valve. Are you clear? Semi-lunar valve. So totally different types of the valve. I will show you guys later what's different between the tricuspid and the bicuspid compared to the semi-lunar valve. So this because at aorta there, so we call it as aortic valve. The one at the pulmonary artery is known as pulmonary valve. Are you clear? Okay, any questions so far? So now, your turn, okay, to answer the question, let's fill in the blank here. 5 minutes. Okay, so you can see that first we have this very large vessel here. Okay, so very large blood vessel that associated with our heart. So this structure actually carry the deoxygenated blood into the heart through the first chamber here known as atrium. Okay, so and it located at the right side. So means that this structure must be right atrium, not atria. Atrium is a singular, atrial is a plural. So means that these two must be vena cava. Can you see that they bring the blood, bring the blood into the right atrium? So one is at the top. So the top one is called superior. Superior, right? Superiority, superior. So from the top down. So means from your brain, from your head down. This one is called superior vena cava. And from the bottom up here, from the bottom up, so means that's inferior. Okay, inferior vena cava. Okay, so next. So these bloods enter into the atrium already. Now they have to pass through these cups. Can you see that? So this is the valve. So how many cups? 3 cups here. So it's called tricuspid valve. Are you clear? And then from a tricuspid valve, enter into the right ventricle. Are you clear? Go into the right ventricle. And then from the right ventricle, because this is deoxygenated blood, so deoxygenated blood have to go into the pulmonary circulations. So it means that they have to go into the pulmonary because it bring the blood out, right? Bring the blood out. So it means that it must be artery. So this one must be a pulmonary artery. So you go branch out. Can you see that? Branch out. So one branch to the left, go to the left lung. Another one branch to the right, go to the right lung. So this one is the right pulmonary artery. Are you clear? Okay, so this one I didn't label. So you can actually put one line here. This one, okay, draw one line. This one is known as the semi-lunar valve. Oh, nice. It's actually is the pulmonary valve. What I'm doing here, sorry. So it's a semi-lunar valve. Okay, right in full, guys. Okay, it's a semi-lunar valve. Okay, tricuspid valve, also known as AV valve, atrioventricular valve. Okay, so go to the lung already. Go to the lungs and then come back from the left lung and okay. So we come back here, enter. So this is the left pulmonary vein because enter, right? So okay, with the oxygenated enter. So it's the vein. So from the right lungs, we have the right pulmonary vein. Okay, so what they enter? So both of them, they enter through this atrium. atrium. So this atrium is at the left side, so it's termed as left atrium, left atrium. So then for here, from left atrium, they have to cross this, okay, push open the valve. So this valve have two cups only. So that's why we call it as a bicuspid or mitral valve. So again, it's a kind of AV valve. Okay, it's a kind of AV valve. And then from the left atrium, enter into the left ventricle. Okay, into the left ventricle. So from the left ventricle, again, guys, can you see that? From the left ventricle, then go into the aorta. So here, can you see that? We do have another semi-lunar valve here, known as aortic. Okay, aortic valve. You can label here, this aortic valve. So also a kind of semi-lunar valve, and then enter into aorta. Are you clear? So from aorta, it make an arch. So this aorta arch, so this arch will go down. So means go to our rest of a body. This one going to up. So one to the right arm, one to the left arm, okay, and then one is a carotid artery go to our head. Okay, so that's why we have three branches here. Okay, one to the left arm, another one to the right arm, another one go up to our head. So which is called carotid artery. So aorta is the one, the only one we call elastic. Okay, elastic artery. Okay, the rest will be the muscular artery. Okay, so the one that separates, okay, can you see that? The one, the structure that separates our left ventricle from the right ventricle is termed as the septum. Okay, so I think this one, if you want to label it, so this one is called as a aortic valve. So it's a kind of semi-lunar valve. Okay. I'm not going to draw it here, okay, for the blood flow because it's very messy. So basically, you can see that from vena cava. I use vena cava, enter into the right atrium, enter into the ventricle. From ventricle, go out through the pulmonary artery. So blue color indicates that it's a deoxygenated blood. So after oxygenated, means the blood is oxygenated in the lung, then they enter back through the pulmonary vein into this left atrium, then enter into the left ventricle, go up through the aorta. Okay, so this is how the blood flow take place. Okay, now I want you guys to look at the thickness. If you compare thickness of the atrium to the ventricle, so definitely thinner. Okay, the wall thinner. Why? Because the distance is very short. Only need for atrium, they only need to create or the force must no need to be a huge force. Are you clear? Okay, so no need to have the huge force to force the blood enter into the ventricle. Short distance, less resistant. So therefore, thinner compared to the ventricle. But for ventricle, they have to pump either to the lung to the rest of the body. So therefore, they must be thicker because thicker you have more cardiac muscle, provide more force of the contractions to pump the blood out. Are you clear? Longer distance. If you compare atrium and ventricle, atrium only short distance, but ventricle long distance. That's why long, what we call the higher resistance. We need to have more cardiac muscle. But if you compare between the left and the right, left ventricle thicker compared to the right because again distance. So which one longer? For the right atrium, we pump the blood into the pulmonary circulation or pulmonary circuits. Pulmonary circuit actually is a shorter distance at the heart, very near only, right? So that's why we do not need to have huge number of the cardiac muscle. No need to be so thick. But for the left ventricle, they need to pump the blood to where? Systemic circulation, which is longer, having higher resistance. So therefore, we need to have more cardiac muscle to pump the blood to the rest of the body, except the lung. Are you clear? So always explain in terms of the distance and also the resistance. So therefore, we need more cardiac muscle to thicker. Clear? So it will compare. So the wall of the ventricle is much thicker compared to the atrial. So because ventricle need to develop much more force in this case when they contract, because longer, okay, because they either go to the lung or go to the systemic, circulations. However, atrial only need to move the blood into the ventricle only. So therefore, atrial valve, atrial wall, no need to be thick. Okay, so the left ventricle is thicker compared to the right, okay? Because for the right ventricle, we need to pump the blood to where? To the lung, which is very close to the heart. So resistant, no, but okay. And also, we don't want to be a too high pressure because it's going to cause the tissue fluid to be accumulated in the lung, okay? Force out a lot of tissue fluids. But for left ventricle, we have no choice. We need to have a sufficient force to supply the blood to the rest of our body, except the lung, okay? So which is a longer distance, and therefore we need to have higher resistance. Okay, any questions? Let me stop the recording for today.